Somalia. For more than 20 years, torn apart by a vicious and brutal war, intervention by both the United States and the United Nations failed to bring peace to this land. Abdirahman Faroli, once a refugee from the conflict, is now an Australian citizen. He's gone back to where he came from to build a working democracy from the ashes of Somalia.
We have the dream that Somalia, when they become like Australia, it could enjoy peace and stability. All those things that the government of Australia has endured with its own citizens, we can make the same thing with that.
But first, he has to tame this land of piracy and terrorism.
He is their enemy, and they have to fight against him, and if they can't, destroy him.
We addressed one of the main centers that has been known as the hub of the pirates.
Farole is hated by pirates.
Piracy, terrorism and old tribal hatreds that can resurface at any time are not the foundations for a democracy.
I don't know even what the democracy is. I don't know. I hear it from the radio, but I don't know whether it looks like you or looks like me.
Faroli has staked his life on showing Somalis exactly what democracy looks like. He has made a start. No longer a refugee, he is now the president of Puntland, the largest state in Somalia, and terrorists and pirates are in his sights. Every rescue mission needs a starting point. Faroli's starting point is here in Puntland.
Puntland. I've got no idea where Puntland is.
Puntland? Never heard of it.
Sounds Welsh.
Puntland. Puntland is Somalia's relatively stable and autonomous northern province. If Somalia is part of the Horn of Africa, then Puntland is the Horn itself, jutting out hundreds of kilometres into the Arabian Sea like an enormous fishing hook. In recent years, there have been a lot of big fish caught in these waters by pirates who've hijacked container ships and oil tankers. President Faroli's first job is to stop the pirates and then deal with the Islamist terrorists Al-Shabaab who've sworn to stop him, with a bullet if need be.
He's hated by terrorist organizations. And he is hated by those who wanted to keep the Somalia in the status quo that it was over the last 21 years. And as a result, he's always under attack.
Faroli's defence? All-out assault on pirates and the militants, wherever he can find them. But he has to do it with an economy running on empty.
I'm doing a gas station car. Right, almost empty. I want to fill it up from this gas station, and it's locked, closed. I don't know where they close for.
Tough as life may be in his country now, it is nothing like the horror Faroli and countless Somalis like him fled 20 years ago. '91 brought what Somalis call Bubur, the catastrophe. Clan leaders unseated the military government and then turned on each other in one of the longest and most vicious civil wars in human history.
I've seen dead bodies basically laying on the streets, on the pavement. You can't stop and help them because you're also running for your life.
As the clans slaughtered each other, they destroyed Somalia.
No, everyone was running. There was no order. There was no time to stop. You don't know why the war had started in the first place.
People who had once been neighbours and colleagues turned on each other. As many as 500,000 people were killed.
women didn't have their protectors anymore, their husbands or their fathers or whatever. So there was a very, a high rate of rape. Rape just, skyrocketed.
Very chaotic situation, killing everywhere. So no one can dare stay anymore when everyone has to flee for their lives.
Including Puntland's future president, then a banker in Mogadishu.
There's a mix of enjoy to get out of chaos. At the same time, I was feeling that it will be very sad to settle a new country where I don't know anybody, I don't know the culture, and I leave all other my relatives back home. I fled to Ethiopia, and from Ethiopia I entered Australia.
Tens of thousands of Somali refugees made new homes all around the world, including Australia. Many gravitated to Melbourne suburbs, Heidelberg and Footscray, sometimes jokingly referred to as Little Mogadishu.
For me, Australia was start everything. Start work, start marriage, start the whole life. I start here. And the opportunity is, you have things you want to do and nobody stop you here.
Australia. Australia is a good place, really. It's good for the woman, too. Absolutely freedom for the woman.
There is the rule of law. There is social justice. Everyone gets their right met.
I like many things about Australia. I don't have to worry about killing and explosion instead. A country where law and order exists. I'm Australian and I'm Somali.
The freedom and security that Faroli prized so highly in Australia were exactly the things that inspired him to return to Puntland, where he was born. He had a job to do, and he needed the power of the presidency to do it.
So I come back to run for the presidential election.
When Faroli returned, Puntland's president was still appointed by a council of tribal elders. Faroli had 8 opponents, but in a leap of faith, the elders embraced both Faroli and his democratic mission and made him their new president. The task ahead was complex and dangerous.
There is a breakdown of security. The pirates, the Al-Shabaab terrorist group settling in all the towns and enjoying freedom of doing whatever they want. It was very tough.
Piracy or terrorism? Which should he tackle first? The international community, including the United Nations and those companies whose ships had been hijacked, made it very clear what Faroli should do first: get rid of the pirates.
The issue of piracy became an issue where actually it hurts the others, not when it was hurting Somalis.
Puntland sits on one of the world's key shipping lanes, carrying around 25,000 ships a year and nearly a third of the world's oil exports. Those seas became the most dangerous waters in the world.
The international community stand up when their ships are hijacked, when the price of the transportation, sea transportation, become expensive, when many of their men are killed.
Between 2005 and 2012, almost 4,000 sailors from 125 countries were hijacked by Somali pirates. The ransoms paid out totaled almost $400 million.
The piracy issue become a business. It become reality that these men are making money out of these ships. It was an operation caused by anger, but later on it became business.
The cost of Somali piracy on the world economy? The World Bank estimates $18 billion a year.
If the ship owners, the insurance companies, sometimes the governments, do not stop the payment of ransom, they encourage directly the insurgents of the pirates.
But why piracy in the first place?
In 1991, when Somali government collapsed, immediately Puntland coasts were occupied by foreign fishing trawlers.
As civil war broke out, the international community did nothing to stop giant fishing companies plundering the only natural resource Somalis could rely on, the fish from the sea. In effect, the food out of their mouths.
That was the mother of the piracy that we have today.
Omar Farah is a Somali community leader in Melbourne. He is adamant that overfishing by foreign-owned trawlers drove desperate fishermen to join forces with the terrorists.
But as long as the people are hungry, as long as they don't have employment, as long as they cannot go to their sea and fish, as long as they are not safe in their houses, then they will join them, unfortunately.
Somalia was powerless to defend its fishermen.
You can illegally fish if you want. It's called IUU, illegal, unreported, unregulated activities. In 2006, they made $4 to $9 billion from Somali coast.
Patrolling Somalia's 1,300-kilometre coast is a formidable task. Based in the port of Bosaso is Saeed Rage. He's been beaten, kidnapped and tortured by pirates 3 times. There's no better man to be on the watch. And there's a lot to watch.
The Yemenis are number 1, Egyptians, Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia, Spain, Italy, France. There is a lot of countries who are involved in illegal fishing in Somalia. Somalia, it became an abyss for everybody.
With depleted fishing stocks and their coastline under assault, Somali fishermen took direct action. They attacked the trawlers. This man was one of them.
xilligan kalluumaysiga ku biiray wuxuu ahaa 1994kii ayaa waxaan ku biiray kalluumaysiga shaqada badda haddii aanu shaqaysanayna maadaama saaxiib ciyaal ahaa xaasna ahaa waxa weeye dhowr jeer ayaa wax leeyay kaale galka bacdi waxa weeye waan diiday sababahan u diidina waxa kamid ah maadaama nin islaam ahaa oo ay xaraan tahay waxna aanan u hayn danta ayaa waxay qofka ku kalifaysaa marka ay u kaliftay in aan galo burcadda marka waxaan ka qaadanay 5 milyan qofkiina wuxuu helay 138.
The vast sums of cash in the hands of largely young men had a catastrophic impact on village life. Families disintegrated. Mothers lost sons to the pirates.
wiilkayga subax quraacday 2 saac guriga ka baxay qadad ma imaan quraac ma imaan sida 3 cisho ku qaatay waa waay meelihii cidihii baan weydiiyey male waxaan niyeystay badda miyuu dabaashay oo baddu ku dhacay baan niyadayda gashay.
Her son is in prison where he will remain for years. She hasn't seen him since the day he left home.
waana farxay maalintaas waaba ooyay waana hayo de wiilkaygu leeyahay burcad buu raacay aad baan u naxay waana farxay kulli hadii noloshiisa la sheegay waa farxay.
The piles of cash quickly evaporated.
Whatever you earn illegally will dry out very quickly and illegally. I heard the pirates, the only area they become successful is women, drugs, alcohol, and buying new cars from Middle East. And those cars are gone, the women are gone, no more drugs now. They sold their arms, I heard, to Al-Shabaab, and that's where Al-Shabaab is, having some kind of symbiotic relationship with them.
aan ku kalsoonayn ba waxay kaaga baxaysaa si aadan garanay yani waa xaqayga waxaan ku ficilin aqoonta ahamta islaamnimada lacagta xaraanta ah marka ilaa yimika si ay noo dhaftay koob shaqay ka raba waxay noqotay waxaan aan garan karin ba dabayl amal oo kale ba noo dhaftay.
In the 4 years after President Faroli took office, the international community took its own measures against the pirates. Naval escorts from Europe and the USA patrolled the sea lanes. Ships carried armed guards and employed privately owned patrol boats. The pressure on Faroli to eliminate piracy at the source was intense.
The budget for the whole of Puntland is about $40 million. About 70% of our budget is for the security.
Puntland badly needed an armed coast guard, but it had no money to build one.
We tried our best to advocate through the international community to support us. And with pirates eradication, we haven't had a positive echo, except from the United Arab Emirates.
It was their oil tankers that were being hijacked, so it funded South African mercenaries to equip and train the Puntland Maritime Police Force, the PMPF. It immediately ran into trouble with the United Nations for breaking the arms embargo.
When Puntland wanted the United Arab Emirates to support them, and the BMF was created as Puntland Maritime Forces, the international community was making noise. Who is there? There are Arabs there who've got arms in Puntland. What are they doing? And then they actually, United Nations asked them to halt and suspend this program until you clarify your point.
Reason prevailed. By late 2012, the 800-strong PMPF was fully operational and kicking goals. With the muscle of the PMPF behind him, Faroli was able to convince the villagers that piracy was destroying their way of life and to work with the PMPF to stop it.
haddii Puntland tahay haddii cilmaha waddanka garow tahay haddii kooyaga ay tahay haddii ardadii tahay haddii ciyaaladii tahay haddii naagihii tahay kulligeey waa kacnay barcadeed dhagax iyo qaar baanu kala daalay xataa qaar baa naga dhintay anaga waanu isku leeynay waan iska saaray waa iska xarayn.
Hijackings fell rapidly as the pirates lost their village bases, and at sea the privately owned armoured patrol boats easily put the pirates to rout and took all the credit.
They only give any credit to BMPF and Puntland activities of dislodging and disrupting their movements and eradicating them from other parties, many parties of Puntland.
Stopping the hijackings was one thing, expensive but relatively easy. But rescuing hostages was another matter. Although nearly 200 remained in the hands of the pirates, the international navy stood off. Trying to rescue hostages was too risky, operationally and politically. Faroli took the risk and ordered the PMPF to free kidnapped seamen.
I was on duty that fateful day. Around 7:45, we were captured.
The 2-3 pirates with gun on us.
I was still wondering, are my people killed or what? What is happening to the rest of the crew?
They made us suffer so much.
These sailors from Ghana are from a ship called the Iceberg, which was hijacked off Puntland at the beginning of Faroli's presidency in early 2009.
Really, we think even hell is better than what we went through.
Look, the perception I have for Somalians was very bad. It was my intention that in my country, when I see any Somalia, I'm going to retaliate.
Over 3 long years, the hostages on the Iceberg watched the ships approach and then just sail on.
They patrol on the sea every day, looking at us. And they refused to come to our rescue for these 3 years.
It was Puntlanders who had hijacked the ship, but in the end, it was Puntlanders who tried to liberate the hostages. It took 13 days, but cleverly using the same little fishing skiffs that the pirates themselves used, the PMPF freed 22 hostages.
Yeah, they are the ones who rescued us. Puntland Maritime Police Force.
These are the ones who rescued us. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The rescue of the Iceberg hostages gave President Faroli the chance to contrast the success of the tiny and ill-equipped PMPF with the impotence of the international navies.
It will teach a lot to international naval forces of the coast of Puntland to try their best to make efforts to liberate them instead of paying ransom.
waxa weeye hawshaad qabateen midaan ku faani karo mid taariikhda gashay caalamka oo dhan waxay ka noqotay wax meel walba laga naadsho.
You've done a great job for us.
The iceberg rescue was a major feather in Faroli's presidential cap. It showed the world that hostages could be saved, and safely. President Faroli had help dealing with piracy, but he had very little help dealing with Al-Shabaab, a far bigger problem for Puntland and Somalia. As he speeds his way to the presidential palace, Faroli knows Al-Shabaab are not going away, and they want him dead. As Faroli arrives at the presidential palace, he knows that if there is a single person in Somalia that hardline terrorists Al-Shabaab want dead, it is him.
In their eyes, Faroli was an enemy. He was their enemy because he's introducing a system that they don't want it to be implemented in Somalia.
Their law, nobody understands. The Sharia law doesn't allow the killing and the bloodshed they did. They assassinate the elites. They put explosives in the mosques, in the university. People sitting in the tea shops get exploited.
Early in the civil war, Al-Shabaab seized the capital, Mogadishu, and imposed a brutal regime they claimed was based on Islamic principles.
When, you know, there is no peace and safety, the last thing you're thinking about is, you know, progress.
Girls were barred from school. Crimes as minor as failing to grow a beard were punished with public stonings or amputations.
They will kill you just like even they cannot kill you by gun, but they can kill you by knife.
Saeed Rageh is all too familiar with their guerrilla tactics.
Al-Shabaab, they are not different from the people. They are same like us. First they change the shirts and they come to you and they will sit near you. You never know because he has small gun, then he will kill you easily. Then everybody said, who is Al-Shabaab? Nobody knows.
Al-Shabaab sana waa raggeena rag kamid ah. Anigu markasta Ilaahay baan baryayaa waxaan ku dadaalayaa horta inaan iga gelin Al-Shabaab iyo wax burcadbadeeda iyo wixii wadanka aan dani ugu jirin iyo diinta taan baan Ilaahay anu ka baryayaa annagoo ku dadaalsana Ilaahay wax ka baryayaa inaan iga gelin yarkaas hadda falka ku kacay Ilaahay iga soo badbaadshay wax ka dambeeyay inaan Ilaahay iga gelin fal argagixisaan Ilaahay ka baryayaa.
Al-Shabaab once sheltered a young Osama bin Laden and recently declared their formal partnership with Al-Qaeda. Puntlanders practice a moderate Sunni Islam, but sitting just across the Gulf of Aden from Yemen, Puntland represents an ideal staging point for Al-Qaeda's wider ambitions for an African jihad.
And we are the gateway of Africa. We are the tip of the horn. They can enter everything from here. Not only the ammunition, but also trucks, money laundering, contrabands, illegal immigrants, everything.
For Faroli, Puntland's military is critical to chase the terrorists out of the mountains. Al-Shabaab is building a base only an hour's drive south of Bosaso, and the military is after them.
Recently we have made a raid in their backyard, back in the mountains where we believe that their leaders were hiding out in the caves. You can imagine our commandos worked 19 hours walk, top of the hill.
midda Al-Shabaab ka warbixin Al-Shabaab anigu khabiir baan ku aad baan ugu xeelad dheer shakhsiga Al-Shabaabka wuxuu aaminsan yahay waxaan asaga ahayn inuu dilo in la khaarijiyo la dilo asagana wadada saxda kaliya haysto ayaa laga dhaadhiciyay uu aaminsan yahay magaca ay sheeganayaan waxa weeye diin laakiin diin maahan.
In the last weeks of 2012, the Puntland military fought off repeated Al-Shabaab attacks. It's not just dangerous work, it's expensive. Cripplingly expensive for a country with a budget that would not even go close to paying the wages of a European football club. And for Puntlanders like drilling expert Ali Magan, the struggle to earn a living is a constant reality. He's 99 years old, and he's looking for a job.
I applied 4 or 5 jobs. The jobs I applied was well drilling, water well drilling. Absolutely my job. They don't give me. I need food. I need money to go to the hospital, to the doctors. I told them, get off the roads. And in Arab language.
Ali the well driller is lucky he has a road to argue about. They say you can count the number of sealed roads in Puntland on one hand. There is no postal service, no railway, no ambulances. Much of Puntland's day-to-day economy, like all of Somalia, relies on displaced Somalis all over the world, sending money home to family. Every month, Liban Yusuf sends money to his mother in Bosaso, as he has done since he arrived in Australia as a refugee.
Even though I was so young, there was huge financial responsibility. There was huge expectations. My parents were expecting me to send them money at the age of 12. And I'm thinking, I don't have a job, I can't speak the language. I mean, I'm young, but I can't speak the language.
With a degree in commerce and tourism, Liban has been sending money back to Somalia for 12 years.
The $200 that I've just sent means that my mother is able to, basically pay all the services that she basically uses. And we're talking about food, we're talking about electricity, we're talking about even, the phone that she uses to contact me.
There is virtually no industry in Puntland. In Bosaso, the only port, the richest business is exporting camel and goat meat. Half the population is still nomadic.
Freud was trying to develop Puntland economically, because unless you have money, you cannot do anything.
If President Faroli is to find the serious money he will need to build a democratic society, it will come from mining, if he can protect the miners.
There are companies, including Australian companies, who were exploring oil. And those companies were always at risk and complaining about security issue.
Well, I heard about Australia, but it's the only country that I didn't saw yet.
After a lifetime working on mining sites around the world, Ali can see Puntland's future in the ground. Not oil, uranium.
Uranium is laying on the ground. We drill it. We can supply all over the world. Mineral is not going to come itself. It needs man who's going to go underground and get it out. And there's no man.
The bulk of the aid that Somalia received during these 21 years, and even before, most of them went to Mogadishu. If we had the same opportunity of that, we would have created a paradise in Puntland.
This country, it used to be a paradise country. We saw the heaven and now we are in the hell.
Where some see a hell, for others it has become a haven. Huge numbers of refugees fled to Puntland's relative safety from the horror of years of civil war in southern Somalia.
dagaalkii burburka xamar buu nagu qabtay 91 xamar baan ka baxay waxyaalaha dhacay waxay ahayd waa la isleynayay inta maalin kasta waa la isleynayay dagaal baa dhacay rag baa lagu baabi'inayay maata lagu baabi'inayay dadka qaxayay maatada oo yaacayso fircanaysa waxna haraad baa leynaya waxna xabad baa leynaysa dad 30 kilomitir baan ilmaha la lugaynayo xambaarsanay wixii ilmaha noo qaada dhark waa ka tagnay aqalki waa ka tagnay cunguriga waa ka tagnay caruurtii iyo biyo bas baan qaadan 30 kilomitir baa luganay
Each year, Australia takes in 20,000 refugees. More than 10 years after they fled the war in the south, 400,000 people are still being given refuge in Puntland. Some have been here longer.
الحمد لله رب العالمين
13 سنة nabadgelyo ku joogaa hadda Puntland 6 caruur ay joogaan waa joogaan mustaqbalka waxaan rajaynayaa in nabadgelyada dhulkayga nabadgelyada meel aan ku dhaafsanayo ma jiro inaan meeshayda ku dhaqmo
It's just before 10 a.m., an historic day for Faroli and Puntland, and maybe the whole of Somalia.
It's a big day for me, because on 8th January 2009, I was elected president of Puntland State. So tonight we are going to have a big ceremony for the 4th anniversary, and I'm preparing my speech.
Puntland's elite, from judges to teachers, from generals to priests, will be present. But this is not just an anniversary party. Tonight, Faroli will spell out his plans for his last year in office, his roadmap to the first general election in Somalia since 1967.
Puntland has been advocating all along to help the rest to emerge from the dust and move on.
After 10 years of international peace conferences to resolve Somalia's problems, all of which failed, Puntland decided not to wait for the rest of Somalia.
Puntland and its president, particularly Faroli, did enormous work to convince the international community to support Somalia, not only Puntland. He went to the United States of America, he spoke to the Congress and said to them, if you don't help Somalia, if you don't create a viable state in Somalia, we will all pay the price.
I was among those who proposed that we cannot wait any longer for the restoration of the Somali government at large, but let's decide for ourselves to establish our own administration, and that was the idea.
Security for the ceremony is elaborate, as usual. Al-Shabaab have made sure of that.
The terrorists, 2 days ago, they have issued their threat that they will fight Puntland.
It comes as no surprise to anybody. Puntlanders know Al-Shabaab's methods only too well. The ceremony is an obvious target. As soldiers prepare for a possible terrorist attack, an Australian TV police drama helps ease the tension.
If you are so worried about our self-protection, then give us some guns.
Access to Western media, especially the internet, is a double-edged sword for Faroli.
The technology of the internet has created a disaster. Everybody has opened his own website and says whatever he wants. Terrorists, enemies of Puntland.
In spite of the challenge, Faroli pushes ahead with promises of democracy. Al-Shabaab is a daily fact of life. But what the people have come to hear is far too important.
At the end of the year, Puntland should come a democratic state where the people put their finger up and choose the one they want to lead them.
But before they hear from the president, first the speeches. Puntlanders' enthusiasm for the idea of democracy is only matched by a new passion for the mechanics of democracy, voting and political parties. Most Australian Somalis are familiar with Australian political parties and Australian attitudes.
Oh, I'm bored with it. So bored with political parties.
I really think that they're only looking after their own interests in a way.
If you ask any politician what their core values are in their political parties, more than likely they won't have a clue.
From what I know of the major parties, they're not really worth supporting.
As humans, we can take anything for granted until, it's taken away.
The political party is very important for Somalia, and it's important also for Puntland as well, in particular. Because it's a system where you're giving the people the opportunity to choose. It's not a one-man show.
Across Puntland, people are flocking to political party meetings.
badan dumarka qaadanaya ilaana anaga ugu badan bulshada marka waa doorkeennii oo ku faraxsanahay doorka ugu badan dhalinyarada yeelanaysa haweenka iyo dhalinyarta
Farajama is Puntland's finance minister. Like President Faroli, he has returned after long years living overseas in Melbourne. At the meetings, like this one by President Faroli's ruling Horseed party, the whole concept of a political party is explained.
Inshallah, waxaan u aragnaa wax fiican oo lagaga gudbaayo caqabadii hore u jiray.
So how do you explain to people who've never seen one what a political party is? Bullets, not ballots, have been the way of the only politics most of these people have known in the past. And the nearest thing to a political party was the clan.
And I want to bring out of this vicious cycle and to bring them in the democratic process and be part of the international community.
قبيل وقتها وعقبت قبيل قرن ما نقضى بهوري لويد الصومالي دكوا معها قرن ما يلوق بالربع قبيل فين لقى ثلاث صدار ربع
10 years ago, young men like this weren't playing football together, they were shooting at each other. The war fed on ancient clan hatreds and modern religious extremism. The idea of boys from different tribes playing together like this was unthinkable. Final whistle. There are happy winners and very unhappy losers. Peace and reconciliation is instantly forgotten. The fight could be any soccer match anywhere in the world, but the way it's settled shows how much of Puntland's past lives on in the present. Shooting at a soccer match. And in Bosaso, as the ceremony breaks for the call to prayer, reports of more problems in the fishing villages where the piracy began. Fishermen have accused foreign trawlers of shooting at them.
لكن هدي اللي يقوم يتريف لي اللي بعد هذا اللي وايو واحد سمين يا فعل فعل كانوا وحول غنى يا فعل.
As the call to prayer is answered all over Somalia, in Puntland there's more tension behind the scenes. Trouble in the fishing villages. The foreign trawlers continue their illegal fishing, but now they are armed. An old song from happier times. But recently, the fishing boats have been coming back empty. This is the village of Ale, where President Faroli was born. Today, Puntland's Minister for Fisheries, Abdi Wahid Mohammed Ja'ar, who was once a fisherman himself, has come to hear what's going on.
تضام ميل سدين ميل بيشوق جرين بهولو لما ميل هل ميل بيشوق هذا تضام كيلومتر لما قارك وحصارا هبك كان لقلو دقالما ديارة مدك ديارة ما بدك يصير.
Now, bigger dragnet trawlers from as far away as Europe and China have converged on these waters.
واحد عليه أنا مصورني مراكب تجريف كاهي وخرب قريها أشتي يمرك كحرابي ودولو بدو جوجلين هو يسألني.
The fishermen are worse off than ever.
waayo qalab baa hadda saaka dhigaysaa galabtii ugu matagaysa waayo isla markadiiba waxaa yimid markab jariif waa qaatay oo naftaada la carabtay haddii aad qalabkaaga sii dabageshidna rag hubaysan baa saaran rasaas baa lagu soo furayaa adna waxaa wadatid waa fiilo iyo matoor.
Once the epicenter of Somali piracy, the fishermen of Ale worked with the PMPF to put a stop to it. There hasn't been a hijack for 3 years. But despite their role in stopping the pirates by driving them out of town, the fishermen's meagre livelihood is still in serious jeopardy.
naf iyo maal waxaan la hareynaa ma jirto haddaan arrintaa wax laga qaban waanu samayn doonaa.
The people are saying, I'm not going to let my children starve. If the coastal area is not working for me, I will go to the inland and capture anyone who has got different color. That's foreigners. So you will have more inland pirates. The international community are trying to address what the Somali pirates did to them, but they are not ready to address what their fishing ships did to the Somalian people. Unless and until they address that issue, the Somali piracy will not stop. It might reduce occasionally, but it will come back.
Fishing is one of the few industries that could give Somalia something to trade for hard currency. Omar Farah can't understand why the UN, the EU or anybody won't act to protect Somalia's fishing industry from the trawlers.
What it takes them to stop? How they can let these ships to stay there illegally, operating and destroying not only the habitat but almost everything that the people own. Why?
As a long day of speeches turns to night, there's no loss of enthusiasm from the audience, particularly the women, once unlikely to have been invited at all, let alone in such numbers. Women in force at the ceremony is not just good manners. Faroli needs women to drive the shift to democracy. Once, most of Puntland's girls wouldn't have had the chance of an education.
Somali women, for a practical reason, had to always be strong, and it wasn't, about making a statement or, for political reasons. It was, being strong was just a handy thing to be.
All right.
Today, 60% of this university's graduates are women, like economics student Warsan Kamal.
Warsan. Okay, Korea development. All right. Korea, okay. Let me know it.
It's an ongoing process by which individuals progress through a series of stages.
All right.
When I finish university, hopefully I'll get a job. That's what I'm hoping for. I want to have a career. I want to work. I want to earn money. I want to help the poor. Yeah, in order to help the poor, I have to earn money, Yeah. That's what I want.
Okay, and equilibrium is that point where supply equals demand. Equilibrium equals happiness.
We should do what men do, somehow. Yeah, because we are living. Actually, I play football. We're not allowed to play football with men because it's against the religion.
Where religion and culture clash on one of Africa's most controversial issues, the president throws his weight behind the women. Nadia Faragab, now an artist living in Melbourne, applauds Faroli's actions. while taking the view that it's long overdue, even in Somalia.
None of my family, the females in my family, have not had it. My grandfather, who died when, I was a few months old, who was in his 80s, ensured that his daughters didn't have it, and his grandchildren didn't have it, his neighbors did not have it. It's good. I mean, he lives in 2013. He's alive, and that's how he should be thinking. But yeah, very, very happy and very proud that he's got this, I suppose, viewpoint.
Night falls in Bosaso. Abdirahman Faroli is about to speak. If Al-Shabaab are going to strike at the president, the moment is now. In Bosaso, President Faroli rises to speak. Security stiffens. Hundreds of heavily armed soldiers are on full alert for the slightest sign of a terrorist attack. All of Puntland and Puntlanders all over the world are listening.
He's good president. He's trying to do the best. But they're going to catch him like this. It's going to tighten his hands back.
To make his point, Faroli welcomes his political enemies. And finally, what everybody had come to hear.
Long night, long day.
And many more to come before the election. It's far from certain that the government in Mogadishu will follow Puntland's lead.
I believe that in Mogadishu they have not yet made their minds to follow the route that we have put ahead.
In Africa we have promises made, but they are betrayed every now and then.
There is one promise that will not be forgotten by anybody, not by those who made it, nor by those who are its target. Al-Shabaab have sworn to do everything in its power to thwart a democratic election in Puntland.
They don't see that there is a peace. They don't see that there is stability. Because if that happens, then they will be irrelevant. And they don't want to be irrelevant.
But in spite of that threat, around the world, Somalis are full of hope that the nightmare is over.
You'll find that it's going to be a limelight of democracy, where people are able to say, okay, now we can basically breathe and feel a little, kind of like rain pouring down on us.
As the clock ticks down to Puntland's first election, Faroli and his government can only hope the rest of the country follows suit and Somalia becomes a constitutional nation of states. Is this a glimpse of a Somali future? Young women play football on the beach, free, safe, happy, and not a pirate ship in sight. This is Abdirahman Faroli's dream.